Hey, today we're going to continue talking about quadratic functions, and now we are going to start solving them. And that might sound more complicated than it actually is. So we use these three words when we're looking for you to solve a quadratic function sort of interchangeably. And they all are asking you to do the same thing. Find the roots, find the solutions, find the zeros of a function. That is asking you to do all the same things. We're looking for what does x equal. So like what is x when f of x or y, we used to refer to it as y, equals 0. So the place where y is going to equal 0 is going to be the place where our x-intercepts are. And we have been looking at our x-intercepts now for several lessons. We identified them in our original lesson, and then in the last lesson, when we were factoring our quadratics, we had to use our x-intercepts. These x-intercepts are things we're going to look for a lot. And so what I want you to do is graph each of these. You can put in f of x, change the letters to x, graph all four of them. So pause now, graph all four of these, and then press play, and we'll go through and we will find the roots, the solutions, the zeros for all of these functions. So hopefully you graphed them all. I have just the first one turned on, and I am going to click my curve and then click my intercepts. And so I have my intercepts at negative 1.5 and positive 3. And we don't want to use decimals. Let's use fractions because that's what we've been doing. So let's be consistent. Negative 1.5 is negative 3 over 2. If you didn't know that, we could type negative 1.5 in here, and it will turn it into the fraction. So again, negative 3 over 2 and positive 3. So I'm going to come down here and I'm going to write, and I'll use the right letters. N is negative 3 over 2, and n is 3. So in the last lesson, we would have sort of reverse solved this thing to find the factors. These are the solutions. The values that make this quadratic function equal to 0 are negative 3 over 2 or positive 3. They both work. And so we can report our answers like this, or sometimes we'll write them in set notation. We put these little squiggly braces, and we write them like this. They're not coordinates. If they were coordinates, they would be in parentheses. Sorry, my squiggly braces are kind of, or my braces are sloppy. But this just tells us that we have two solutions, negative 3 over 2 and 3. And that's all we're doing here. When we're looking for the roots, the solutions, the zeros, we're finding the x values from our x-intercepts, and we are writing them down. So if we look at our second one, we have negative 0.4 and positive 3. Again, we can convert negative 0.4 to a fraction, negative 2/5. So negative 2/5 and positive 3. Those are our solutions. And I'm going to write them in a solution set so you can see both ways to report your answer. So whenever you're asked to identify roots, whenever you're asked to identify solutions or zeros, this is what we're doing. We're graphing and we're finding the x-intercepts. So I'll do one more. This third one, we get -1 and -0.25. Again, we don't want a decimal. Let's use our fraction to be consistent. -0.25 is -1/4. And so if we just maintain our consistency where we're using fractions, then we're doing the same thing that we did when we found our factors, except we don't have to go that extra step to reverse solve this thing. We can just say, hey, these are our solutions. These are our zeros. These are our roots. And that's it. These are roots. They're solutions. They're zeros. They're all asking us for the same thing. Find the x value for our x-intercepts. Because that is when y is 0. That's when f of x is 0. So we'll skip this fourth one. I want you to go ahead and try these two. Try those two. Make sure you put your answers into the box that pops up. So hopefully you got these answers. If you struggled a little bit with the decimals, for example, in this second one, the one solution is 1.667. 1.667 is the result of rounding a repeating decimal. So 1.667 is really just 1.66 and then 6 repeating. So if you kind of fill up this little box with 6's and then hit the fraction button, you're going to get 5/3. The same thing is true for negative 0.667. Instead of 0.667, we'll just put a bunch of 6's because that's really 6 repeating, and we get -2/3. So if you ever get stuck on those, you're getting a funky fraction, just raise your hand, ask me for help, and it's probably one of these repeating decimals that needs to be converted to a fraction. So make sure you take your time on the practice. Make sure you finish the practice. Ask if you need help. Good luck.